Ready.
Hello, hello, and welcome to Happy Time, Happy Money podcast with Victoria Miracle. And today we have Andre Albritton, and he's a graduate of Florida A&M University, has become a nationally recognized investing nerd who trains people on building wealth through the stock market and REITs. He is the founder of the Millennials Next Door. In addition, Andre created the Flavor podcast, focused on the many different flavors of investing with stocks, real estate, and entrepreneurship. Hi, and welcome, Andre.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
Yay. Well, tell us more about you and how you started and what inspired you to do on what you're doing right now.
Yeah, of course. So for myself, I'm a very basic guy. So way back when in 2016, sounds really far now, but I was in the insurance world and I decided I wanted to do something more. So I decided to look into finances, and it turns out there was something called being a financial planner, financial advisor. And at that time, I didn't know people would pay you to tell them what to do with their money. So I always thought I was good with my money. And it turns out I wasn't necessarily good with my money back then. I was just really cheap. So I gave off that impression that I was good with my money. So from there, kind of fast forward a little bit, I ended up working in a financial firm where we pretty much dealt with retirees. So these are people who net worth was at least six figures or so paychecks. And one thing I did notice that was kind of odd to me at the time, a lot of the people, they only owned one house. They owned their main primary residence and that was it. And it was crazy because usually we hear that you need to own real estate to be wealthy and to be rich and whatnot. And here, all these wealthy people only own one house. So it turns out, they still do invest in real estate, but they do it with a little bit less risk. And that's how I was introduced to real estate investment trusts. And to put that simply, these are just companies that own bigger buildings. So one company might own multiple hotels. And then you have investors like me or you who invest in these things. And they trade on the stock market just like a stock of Amazon or Apple. So that's what really kind of got me moving there. And I just became this one big investing nerd, taught myself how to invest. So now I teach other people how to invest. I do the Flavor podcast, which is always fun for me, just having people on because there's so many different ways to make money. Why not show it off? But that's what kind of led me to the Millennials Next Door. I just want to be a good neighbor to everybody and see if I can help them on their financial journey as well, so they can go get their goals knocked out and enjoy life.
That is such an awesome vision. And podcast is always fun, right? We learn so many things in a podcast and interviewing people or giving interviews ourselves. So tell us more about, could you elaborate on REITs that you've shared a little bit, but how you start with that, what to look for in REITs, and just explains what is that?
Yeah. So for REITs, I always say, think about this. Think about the United States postal system. So if you've ever been in any type of postal office, you have the people up there that represent the American government, they mail your packages and whatnot. Those buildings are actually owned by a real estate investment trust. The ticker symbol for them is USPT, if you ever want to look them up. But for this company, they just own multiple post offices throughout America. And what the American government does is they pay rent to this company. So that's what these REITs do. So some REITs focus on hotels, some focus on apartments, some focus on houses. There's about 9 different sectors. But the best thing about these is they have to give 90% of their taxable income back to shareholders. So just as an example, if they earn $100,000 for the full year, $90,000 of that is going back to shareholders in dividends. So that's why a lot of people usually enjoy these REITs. I mean, it's just a good way to get real estate exposure without having to, save up a bunch of money for it, take on the hassles of finding a tenant, possible things breaking down in the house. For me, it just allowed me to be a lazy investor in real estate.
Love it. So anyone can start it. And how much money do you need to start with it?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So one thing I'll mention is we have these things called fractional shares. And the way those work is nowadays you can just invest $1. And let's say the stock is $2. That means you own half the share. So I find that the fractional shares is the best way to kind of get started, especially if you're new to it. And the best way to invest in REITs, well, you invest them on the regular stock market. So even though we call them REITs, they are really technically stocks, just like Tesla, just like Apple, Amazon. So if you can buy that on your broker firm dealers such as Robinhood or Charles Schwab, you can find the REITs as well. I would say one thing to keep in mind is to, definitely do your research, because the good thing about REITs is there's not that many of them. So you can make some really good decisions and kind of keep investing into them for the long term. And a great resource for that is www.reit.com. They kind of list all the REITs, all the different sectors. So I always say that's like the best place to start for any beginners ready to get started.
Yeah, and for everybody who's listening, REIT is spelled with the REIT. So that's reit.com, super easy and understand. That's so cool. So you can start with anything, any money, and already be an owner of real estate, pretty much.
Yeah, you got it. It's cool. Simple, just like that.
Super cool. And what was your number one mistake that with money when you were starting out?
Number one mistake with money, you know what? I think it's probably one that most people don't have, making that mistake of, but I probably didn't spend my money enough. As I mentioned, I was really cheap back then, but nowadays I'm able to say, hey, this is the money that's for business. This is money that's for investing. And I have a little category for my fun money. So, whether I'm traveling somewhere or just going out with some friends for some drinks. Yeah, because you really have to enjoy the money that you have, because at the end of the day, if you don't, you'll be miserable. And then you probably regress a little bit on your goals. So I found out that later on down in life. But yeah, definitely having a fun category in my spending plan has been hugely beneficial for me.
Beautiful. Thank you. And the last question that I have for everybody is filling the blank in a sentence for me, please. If you really knew me, you will know that I am blank.
If you really knew me, you would know that I'm highly into superheroes. And I say that because if you ever took a class or did any events with me, checked out my Instagram page, you're probably gonna see some references to superheroes. As we talk right now, I have on a Batman shirt, just to kind of prove the point. But yeah, if you ever knew me, you'll know that I'm way into superheroes, and to be more specific, DC superheroes. Marvel is okay, but I like DC better. That's just me.
So cool. So if you like superheroes, totally, and send a DM. And I know Andre already mentioned his best platform, it's Instagram. And if you're watching or listening to this episode, as always, just scroll down and there's going to be a link to episode webpage where you will find all the links that we mentioned in this episode. So look in the show notes for that link. Thank you so much, Andre, for coming and sharing your wisdom and having this beautiful vision and sharing your knowledge with people. And thank you so much for watching and listening, and leave us reviews, send the messages. We are here to support you on any way. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.